Hi, welcome to the garden today. I'm in Texas, Zone 9A, up north of Beaumont. And today I'm going to be talking about the 5 native plants that I have growing that produces fruit in my garden. And these are plants that I'm actually growing. First one we're going to be talking about is the elderberry. That's these right here. Now I have had elderberries when I was in West Texas up around Paducah at an 18-inch rainfall belt, and we're in about a 50-inch rainfall belt here, and we can still grow them here, of course, also. They are very versatile. Birds will tend to get the fruit. They didn't pollinate real well on this one. I've got more over there, but they hadn't flowered out this year. Don't do a whole lot with them. We did plant some. This one here's, I don't think this may not actually be one that's a native. We bought about 3 or 4 different varieties. One of them was from the European, but there's European elderberries and there's also your American elderberries. I bought some of both, and this is just a chance seeding. But since that seed heads there so big, it tends to be, from what I understand, it tends to be a different European variety. But they still are native varieties that grow here. It's an easy one to grow. If you want to make your elderberry wine or elderberry jelly, there's supposed to be a lot of, medicinal properties for it. Like I say, I don't think we've collected the berries before, but never. I don't think ever. I think they just wound up in the freezer and stayed there. But they are pretty easy to grow, and like I say, have a wide range. For growing area. It's just not Southeast Texas. Like I said, we also did it up in the western part of Texas, up close to the Panhandle. If you don't know where Paducah is, it's just south of Childress. If you take a spot in Amarillo, Lubbock, Wichita Falls, and Abilene, we're right dead center. We live there. We're 120 miles from anywhere. But anyway, on to the next one. Number 2 on my list, and one that goes really well, is your Muscadine grapes. Now, for people in Central Texas, there's a wild grape growing out there that's called a Mustang grape. They are different, okay? The main difference I've known about them is the Mustang grapes really don't have much flavor to them. They're extremely acidic and really just not made for fresh eating. They do make good jelly, but not for fresh eating. These here, called Muscadines, actually are pretty, a lot of people eat them fresh. The problem is they do have thick skins, and they do have seeds. They're trying to get some that's seedless, and I think they've been working on that, but I don't know if they got some varieties that are seedless, but I don't think they make very well and haven't really taken off. One thing I'll caution you on, though, is these things will go crazy if you're not careful. The other thing to remember, that wild grapes growing here in Texas, if you get a wild grape, 90% of those are just going to produce male flowers, and they'll never produce any fruit. So if you're going to try to get one just from the wild, be cognizant of that. When you're buying Muscadine grapes, like Isons is one of the ISONS. It's one of the main producers of the Muscadine grapes. Done a lot of research. Really good company. One thing you want to look at is certain varieties have all female flowers, and certain varieties have both male and female flowers, and they're called fertile. If you're going to grow some that's an all-female variety, and why they do this is they're a little more productive, have a little bit better fruit size to them, is you do need to have the self-fertile varieties mixed in with them, or have a wild grape growing within 50 feet, which that's probably not going to have that. But they say like every 5th plant, you want to have a self-fertile variety. And I planted, well, you can't see a T-post, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I planted 6 different varieties through here. Some fertile, some self-fertile, some all female flowers. I have not taken care of them. I've got busy in other things, and we had a lot of health emergencies and things of that nature. I'd intended to build a trellis through here, and then I mistakenly planted some other trees, and they're kind of shaded out. They have taken over some other areas, but this does have some grapes on them. If you come here and look, they do have a few grapes, not very many. And like I say, if I trim them up, they do a lot better than that. But they do have a few on it. People tend to like the bronze colored ones more than the dark purple ones. So if you're going to get a variety starting out, I'd get the bronze colored ones. But the purple ones I think tend to get bigger and probably more productive. But bronze tends to have the better actual flavor from what most people do. Now everybody's got taste differences, but the average person, from what I've gathered, even talking to people and reading up on it, seem to like the bronze varieties better. But they do well, and like I said, they're native. They're native all throughout the Southeast. It's just that when you get into Texas, here they're native, they're muscadines. Even the wild ones are muscadines for the most part. But you get over, probably even Houston. But I know in the College Station, I know Waco area, we had a bunch. And I will say, if you use Mustang grapes, you have to wear plastic gloves, or those gloves on it, or you start eating your fingernails, and the acid will, and make your hands start burning. I know this because we were told that, and my mom did not believe them, and we gathered up a bunch of the Mustang grapes growing on the farm we just bought, small farm, and she harvested them. She started working on them, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, she started burning her hands. So, we tend to learn that way. People will tell us something, and then we don't believe them, and then we find out they were right. But I've done the same thing. I'm not picking on my mom. I probably would have done the same thing. We said, well, maybe they were just, but no, it's a real thing. So Mustang grapes are different. I just want to really reiterate that, because if you're in Central Texas, you have no idea what the Muscadine grapes taste like. They are, the first one I tried, I'm not a big fan of muscadines, but I understand why people like them, and I can eat them if I had to, and I'll pop a few in my mouth and eat them. It's just, I hate messing. You have to take their slip skin, so you slip the skin off of them. You eat that, and then you spit out the seeds, and to me, it gets complicated especially trying to eat inside. If you're eating outside, I guess it don't really matter, but some people like the taste of muscadine, some people don't. But a lot of people just take a big old deal of muscadine, they eat them all day. So anyway, on to the next plant. I know we didn't move far, but this here is what you call a beautyberry. Now beautyberry, this one came up on its own. I have not planted any beautyberries on my place. They're just here natively, and you'll see here's the berries growing around here. In the fall, these berries are turned to a really bright purple. They'll look like they're really scrumptious to eat, and you can eat them, but just they have no flavor to them. Some people, they say they've made beautyberry jelly and it tastes good. But one thing about when you're making jelly, if you put enough sugar in anything, you can kind of make something edible. But some people do use these. They are very good. Pollinators like them. Deer will eat the berries sometimes. It has not drawn deer into my place. I know deer eat them, but it's not like it's not something they hunt out. My plum trees, they do. Beautyberries, they don't. But these are, ornamental. You'll see them sold at the stores, but they grow native out here and can almost be a pest. I tried to kill this one because it's kind of growing where I didn't want it to grow. I got a peach tree here. I got another nectar plum right here. I didn't want it here. And I took it and I sprayed some brush killer on it, and it knocked the leaves off of it, and then it came back, and I just let it grow. And in about 4 years this thing's been growing, I got this thing. It's 10 foot tall, and that big around. And now the muscadine's starting to try to come in and invade it too, but it's just a nice little plant. It's technically a fruit. You can eat the fruit, but usually it's going to be used for preserves. Anyway, on to number 4. The next one on my list, one I really liked, I've actually made some fruit on it at times, is the Chickasaw plum. Now this here is actually an improved variety of Chickasaw plum. Personally, I think they got a little bit of Japanese plum in them, but it's mostly Chickasaw. And it's called Odom, and it does root sprout really heavily because this is not what I planted. I planted one over there because this one over here is the Odom variety, and it's got all these suckers coming up around it. It suckers out enormously. Can be a problem, or if you're trying to give them away, you can give away to all your friends and neighbors and everybody else, but it does try to take over the whole place. If you don't like that, they do have the Guthrie variety, and you'll see you see this from here, but that's coming from that tree over there. It's not coming from the Guthrie tree. Now these trees have gotten way out of hand. I did not prune them back. It does take 4 or 5 years for them to start producing. And the first year they'll put out a bunch of blooms. I know for me and another person, they did not start producing the first year. I got nervous about that because they did not produce the first year. So I went out and I bought me a native Chickasaw plum, which is right over here. So this is the native, a true native Chickasaw. If you'll notice on the leaves, they look a little bit different. Maybe you can't notice, I'll do it like this. The leaves aren't quite the same. So that's why I think there might be some crossbreeding or whatever, or they could just be some variants within the tree itself. But this one's used for cross-pollination. Now, after I planted this tree and it did not bloom the first year, I actually planted 2 of them, I cut one of them down, and it did not bloom the first year, I got a good pollination of these 2. So the Guthrie and the Odom do cross-pollinate each other. But if you do not have another one of a different variety, okay, I always have to say that because people say, well, I got 2 Guthries and they're not, you know, they're not producing. Well, technically you got 1 Guthrie. Guthrie is the same genetics, so it's not cross-pollination. That Guthrie and I think this is a Guthrie 2, maybe. I think that's the Odom, these 2 are Guthries, or something of that nature. I think these 2 are both Odoms. But if you're worried about it, you know, you can't, and people don't seem to understand, if it's the same variety, what these actually spread through root cuttings, where your peaches and plums, a lot of times they're grafted. And if it's a grafted tree, that tree is the same genetics, so it's not, you can't get cross-pollination on the same variety. Now, it's the same thing on this Chickasaw. You know, this Chickasaw will also produce out. It will also produce, if you come up over here, this tree here is a root sprout, what's root sprout for that, on that tree over there. You know, it's the native Chickasaw, and tell by the leaves on it, it's genetically the same as that tree over there because they're connected by the roots. So it sent out a root and then it put out another tree over here. It's not a seedling variety. If it's from a seed, it would probably be okay. But since it's not, they're not going to cross-pollinate. And that's why you don't see Chickasaw plums or O'Neill plums or Guthrie plums. Now I got those from a nursery, Miller nursery. But that's why you don't see those at your big box stores and stuff, because people don't like to buy a tree and take it home and it never produces fruit. And if you don't have another variety of one of the Chickasaw strain, it's not going to produce any more fruit. So that's why it's not very popular, but it is native. It has done very well. I've not, after I got them established, I've not watered them at all, even through the, well, I did water a little bit. But I don't know if it did. I mean, I put out a sucker hose and let it run for a couple hours. That don't produce a whole lot of water, but I did some of that during the really throughout the period. So you might have to water them some, but they're basically a native tree. They usually can take care of themselves, except for the really drought time. And like I said, 50-inch rainfall, but we don't have a whole lot of those. So I really can't. It's not a water hog. I don't know how much it can take without water, because it does grow in the southeast, so that means that it can't seem to handle the drier climate from when you get into the interior of Texas. Anyway, on to number 5. Number 5 is going to be your blackberries. Now this is not a completely, I mean, it's a blackberry. Blackberries are native, but this is a named variety. It's called Primark Freedom. It does very well here. It will actually produce some fruit on last year's canes in the fall, and it's actually done some in the late summer or early summer this year for some strange reason. But like all of them, they tend to produce on the second year. And this is the cane it comes on. It's a very vigorous cane. It's already made its fruit for this year, for the most part. I do go with thornless varieties. The reason for it is I just don't like to get stuck by stickers. You're seeing another one up over there that's producing some fruit there. They do kind of go everywhere on you, but since don't have stickers on it, that doesn't really bother me, because if I want to pull one up, I can pull one up. It's not a big deal. But to me, if you're going to grow a native fruit in Texas, you're going to have to water them because they grow along they grow around creeks and rivers and things of that nature. They need a little bit of supplemental water, and don't think you can just go up in the black lands, plant blackberries, and they're going to flourish. They do need some supplemental water. Here where I live at, we get wild blackberries all over the place. Okay, so they're truly native here. You're kind of pushing the range out in central Texas, but they are out there. It's just that they're in places that get a little more extra rainfall. Super easy to grow. You just got to give them a couple years to get going. They will die. This cane here is going to die this year. You know, this is a cane here from last year. It does that every year. It'll produce a cane like this the first year, and this cane will get bigger. It'll grow, and then it'll produce fruit the next year, and then it'll die. So try to keep these out just to keep them from getting cluttered up. But like I say, they're very good. I do like Primark Freedom. I also like Ponca. It's another Thornless variety. I mean, they make some really, I think Kyle was the one that's just a huge berry, but it's thorned. And it also has huge seeds and it has huge thorns and has huge berries all wrapped into one. But to me, I planted them. I thought they were great for a while, but I just got tired of getting stuck with them. And these are truly thornless. You can grab them all over the place. There's no thorns anywhere on them. So you don't have to worry about that. A lot of people in Texas try to grow raspberries because raspberries are not native here. They don't grow very good down here. I am also growing some raspberries, but I got those in containers. They just don't do real well, you know. The one I got that seems done the best has been Crimson Night. Heritage have done in the past. They also don't live very long with raspberries. These blackberries, until they start really to getting diseased up, they're going to do okay. They're going to last you, you know, at least probably 5 years before they get diseases. And even then, you know, they can even last longer than that. And if you got we got really high humidity and stuff, so we get a lot of stuff that other people don't get. But there is some diseases they can get, like over here. But I will show you the downside. This is Rosetta disease or whatever that this one has here, and the fruit never develops. It just dies. And as you can see, it did make a couple down there, I guess. And this is a thorn variety, so I'm being very gentle. I'm not sure which variety it is, but it does get a disease, and when that disease gets in, yeah, that's time to start taking them out and move them to, if you got enough land, just move them to another spot. But anyway, the other fruit that I've grown here, I did not write down, is ground cherries. Ground cherries are native in Texas. I seen a ground cherry growing in the middle of a cotton field one time, a former cotton field. They planted CRP, didn't know what it was, took it back to the office, and that was when I was in, I think still in Paducah. I live in Paducah and Haskell, both of them in West Texas. And they grow native out there. I've got ones that grow here that'll pop up. I got one growing up in the rain gutter of my house. I guess a bird took it up and then it get enough rain that it's kept it alive. So if you like ground cherries, that is another one. It is a native fruit. I kind of hate to say it because it is annual, but so I didn't put that on my 5 top ones since it is an annual, but it does produce fruit and it is a native. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.